Perfect. Hey everyone. My name is Julián. My last names are Pinzón Eslava because I think in all of Latin America, we use our father's last name first and then our mother's last name second, right? Also hey. So I have a lot of issues here because there's also a single field for last name, and people always think that Pinzón is my middle name. That's also my last name. Cool. You can call me Juli. Yeah. First quiz.
Curiosity, but if your parents have two last names,
Yeah.
what is there a convention for choosing?
Oh, the first one.
the
You're like,
first one?
yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, cool.
All right.
But I won't.
Okay. Like 5 seconds in, like getting questions. This is awesome. Yeah. So when you write stuff in your apps about names, yeah, there are a lot of different ways to name people. Okay, cool. That's a little side quest. Okay, you can find me everywhere as Pinzón Julián. You now know that's my last name and first name. And you can call me here Juli. It's short for Julián. It's easier to pronounce in English. So Juli, that should be okay. Today I'm gonna talk about Oaken. Oaken is a fresh take on fixtures and seeds. But first, who am I? I am Julián. I come from Colombia. It's a very nice picture I found of Colombia, a really nice map. Colombia's topography is really cool. Like it's a particularly special, I think, and that gives us a lot of like diversity in our country. The cultural separation between different cities in the country is extreme. Like here, someone from Perth and someone from Melbourne, they're different, yes, but yeah, mostly similar. In Colombia, someone from the coast is radically different from someone from the middle of the country, like where I'm from, which is very, very cool. And today I want to give you a little tidbit about this region in Colombia, which is the region of Colombia that borders the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea. So Pirates of the Caribbean, like that's the area where all that happened. I want to show you some music. I am a musician. That's what I studied in school before becoming a software engineer. And I want to show you a little piece of music from that region in Colombia. So this should be playing, hopefully. All right, I got a mouse. The audio is playing from the HDMI. So one sec, let's debug this very quickly. Because I mean, it warrants having like good audio. I think people in the Zoom call were listening to it correctly, so that's good. So speakers, HDMI, that should be right now. Cool. Let's do it again. A little warm up there. Here, beeswax and coal. And the drums are built from animal skin and wood. And the little shaker thing is called maracon. It's like a bunch of seeds inside this cocoon. Maracon.
Oh.
So I'm showing you this because I think it's very cool. A very cool thing from my country. It's something that represents something very important about our culture, which is the mixture of races. That's how we called it in Colombia. Probably race is not the right term to use anymore. But the drums are from the Black people who came to America as slaves, and the wind instrument is from the people that lived in the Americas. So that mixture of those two things created this kind of music, which is beautiful. So I just wanted to share that with you. But we're not here to talk about gaitas. Whoa, we're here to talk about Dada. What a segue, right? And animation and everything. All right, cool. But what kind of data? Data or data? Oh, I'm gonna mix them up because all right, cool. So we're gonna talk about data to test your applications. But in a way, you use data not only to test them, but also to feel them. Like if you don't have good like testing data and seed data, it's hard to grasp how your application is feeling. And if your seeds or your test data is not correct, you're not gonna see what your customers are seeing. You're not gonna experience all of the edge cases that your application has. So I like to think of data as something you feel in your applications. So let's start with seeds. So I use the issue tracker in the Roro GitHub account to ask, hey, does anyone know about seeds? This was 2020. Because I wanted to know how people were doing seeds and different approaches to building like a healthy set of seeds for your application. Because when you start a new Rails app, you just have this file, just check everything in there, and then no one actually sort of shows how to evolve that over time. So I wanted to know, but no one actually came up with a talk for that. So that was a little bit sad. But seeds are easy-ish. Like they're it's just like a Ruby file. It's a script. You can just play with it. It doesn't affect your customers. It doesn't affect your tests. So the biggest impact is just yourself and your own experience. So low stakes, plain Ruby, just affect yourself. It's easy-ish. But let's talk about fixtures, because this is the default approach to testing data in a brand new Rails application. So I asked another question a few months after in the issue tracker, like, hey, fixtures versus factories, like, what's up? Like, what are you using? What's the best practice? A lot of people say you shouldn't use fixtures, that they're like that they're not good, that they're confusing. So what should you do? And then no one came up with a talk for that as well. So I ended up searching stuff like, yeah, like this article that I found online is like, don't use fixtures. It's an anti-pattern. It's like the worst. And a few months after, Kevin asked, a few months now, a few years, 3 years after, he's like, hey, how you doing? Have you learned anything about this topic? And I hadn't really like learned too much to be able to give a talk. And then you still see these articles like testing anti-patterns, and the anti-patterns is using fixtures and factories, like that's the anti-pattern. And then you go to the Thoughtbot blog, and like, we need to talk about fixtures. Like, oh my God, it's like big topic. And then it's like we have problems with this test, and this test is not correct, and it feels like this bunch of issues because of the fixtures. So in summary, is like, yeah, just use use factories. Like don't even bother with fixtures. So I'm like, okay, factory bot all the way, like full on. And then Nate Berkopek, the Rails performance guy, like tweets like, if you wanna have like a really slow test suite in CI, choose factories instead of fixtures. So like, okay, then there are people who are actually recommending we use fixtures and not factories. So yeah, I went in on fixtures, all in, on a personal project that I was working on, and I was 100% miserable. It was like the experience picture is hard with the defaults that Rails comes with. And then I went back to Twitter and like saw the responses to that tweet, and like honest answer by Nate. It's faster but not easier. So okay, cool, great advice. Go all in Fixtures, but you're gonna have a hard time. So then I came back to the issue tracker and responded to Kevin. Nate, I'm still confused. So why am I here? I'm still confused. And I don't have a straight answer for you today. So if you were looking for an answer and I'm not going to give it to you, you're free to leave. But what I want to show you is something interesting that I saw online, and it's Oaken. Oaken is a gem by Casper Tim Hansen. Casper was in the Rails core team for a few years. He puts out really interesting stuff, really interesting abstractions in like to work in Rails. He was actually going to be with us here today, but something came up and he couldn't be online, like via Zoom. But we're working on getting him here maybe on the next month. So disclaimer. Oh yeah, before the disclaimer.
The uninitiated, do you want to just briefly say what are fixtures and factors?
I'm gonna go there.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna go there. So disclaimer. I don't have, again, a straight answer for this. I also want to hear from you today. Like, what has been your experience? Have you gone all in on factory and factory bots? Or have you used fixtures? Do you use a mixture? What is that like in your own applications? Because I still need an answer, because I want to be better, and I want to have a fast running suite in CI. So to give you a little bit of context, I built a small like dummy application today to showcase what Oaken is and some of the concepts that it brings to the table. It's an app that I'm actually wanting to build. I think DC, David here, we've talked about it before. I want to build an app to organize the chores in my house. I think everyone at some point wants to build an app for that. So I might build it at some point. So there are users and there are accounts, and users are members of accounts through memberships. There are plans which are don't belong to anyone. They're just the plans that I want to sell to people, to get people on this app. And there are chores, and there are people who contribute to this chore. So chore contributors. That's sort of the little setup that we're gonna talk about today. So let's see some code. And for this, I didn't think this through. I'm gonna switch my setup a little bit to mirror my screen. Displays, range, and whoa. Does this work? Yes, beautiful. Okay, cool. So this is the app that we're going to be talking about today. This is the repo, and this is actually RubyMine, and I love RubyMine. This is I don't work for them, but it's really cool. We're gonna use a few of the features here today. So if anyone wants to try it, there's a license here for you. All right, cool. So let's explore this app as we would like any new Rails application. So let's go very quickly through the models. They are very bare bones for this example, but again, user, plan, membership, all the stuff. Whenever you create a new model in Rails, Rails will create a bunch of files for you, a bunch of tests, and it will create fixtures. So what are fixtures for the uninitiated, or if you've never used them and you want to see how they work? Cool. So under the test folder, we're going to use the default testing framework, Minitest. We're not going to use RSpec, but applies to both. You get these YML files. And these YML files describe different accounts or chores or contributors that your application will use for the testing environment. So let's say we open up users, and I have created a bunch of users with different names. You will note this is all Bluey themed. I don't have kids, and I binge Bluey. It's the best. All right, so so you always have to give a fixture a name so that you can reference it in your tests, right? We'll see how we reference that later on. But you have to give it a name, and then you give it any attributes that that instance will have once it's in your application. So in this case, users only have an email. So I've put different emails here in my fixtures. We can see a few others. So I have a basic plan and a pro plan. Both have names and both have prices, and so on and so forth. So forth. There's something about fixtures that it's interesting because they're meant to be used for tests, but it starts becoming a bit cumbersome. Is that you actually have to name each one of them. So it's forcing you to purposefully use them and give them a name so that you can reference them, which is a good thing. It's for tests. The thing is, it becomes a bit complicated. So for example, here in contributors, I need to say that it is a single person that is mopping and whose user is unicorns. Like it starts becoming a little bit unwieldy how you have to name these things as your associations become more complex in order for you to go back and try and reference them, right? So it's kind of difficult to use in that sense. You'll also see that you have, for example, in this case, account. You can reference another fixture with its name so that you can associate stuff. So in this case, the account for this particular contributor is unicorns. So I'd have to then go to users. This is why it's so complicated to go and figure out that, okay, this is unicorns or memberships, I think. And now there's memberships are different. Yeah, okay. So the difficulty that I'm expressing here, it's in a way intentional and also it's real. It's hard to remember all the connections that you have done in your fixture because of their nature, because they are separated in different files throughout your application. And these are just like 6 models or so. Imagine when you have, I don't know, 50, 80 models, 100. It starts becoming more and more complex to maintain all of these relationships in your head of the different things you're building. So how would you run a test with fixtures? So let's go to users fixtures test. I have 2 different tests for the users model. And I am loading all fixtures here. You would usually put this maybe in your application, sorry, in your test helper. You would load all fixtures there, but I'm doing it specifically in each test so that I can play with it. So this is going to load all fixtures for this test, and then it's going to test that things happen. So let's very quickly run this single test. And okay, this test passed, like users, I'm only like touching users in this test, right? But if we actually go look at the database, and this is why Remind is cool. It's got everything here, so you can just load your database and see stuff. You can actually see that, for example, for the plans database, it seeded in a way, not seed, but it injected plans. It injected all the memberships. It injected contributors. It did everything. So what fixtures do is that they batch all of those fixtures that you created in your YML files and puts them straight away in your database, so that all of this is always accessible in absolutely every test, which seems a little bit overkill, but it is helpful because it's a single transaction that goes in, gives you all of this test data, and you don't have to write this every time you create a new test. Yes?
Does that replace, does it truncate? So, without
Yeah, it does everything, and after each test, Rails uses transactional fixtures, so you actually get a transaction in each test, and it's rolled back. So none of your tests, like one test wouldn't affect the other. So everything gets rolled back. It's the same as with factories. The same behavior happens. So yeah, so that's sort of one of the benefits of fixtures, is that you get a complete set of things in one complete transaction. And then you don't have to create all of these object graphs in your head or in your test, I mean, to run a test. So if I were to run, for example, I won't be able to run it because I haven't written it fully, but for example, this account controller test, imagining that this has a user that logs in and whatnot, you wouldn't have to think of the whole setup of, okay, I have to create a user and then an account and then a membership, like you would with factories. You would just say, okay, I want to log into the account of the healers. That is the family account, so to speak, in this scenario, and just go and run all these tests for that particular account. So you don't have to think of all the setup, you've already done it. So that's sort of one of the appeals of fixtures, that you only think of that once and then it's all in. The thing is that they are hard to maintain and they are hard to reason about. And if you look online and grab those articles that I showed initially, you will find some of the drawbacks of using fixtures. So I do encourage you to go read them.
ERP template.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do to like generate fixture like programmatically with ERB within your YAML file. It can become like really, really hectic. Okay. So how does this connect to Oaken and this new approach on testing data and seed data? So let's go to our DB seeds folder. So if I go to Safari and show you the documentation for Oaken, the description of it is very much based around the story that you create for your application, for each of the test cases of your application. That is also how fixtures work. You create a story. So if I created the healer family to test the chores of my application, I want to create a story that is consistent across all of my tests that everyone knows about. So if I spend all of this time crafting good fixtures, why wouldn't I reuse that for seeds to see my application and test it myself, right? So that is the premise of Oaken. You have a single set of instructions of how your data looks, how your data feels in your application, and you reuse that both for tests and seeds for your application, right? There are quite a few conventions in Oaken, but it starts with your seed file, and you just have to say Oaken prepare, and you tell it to seed accounts and data. These are folders within your DB seeds folder that it will look into to grab that data from your seeds and put it into your seed file. So when you run Rails DB seed, you will get all of that you prepared. So in this particular case, data is plants, because my plants, oh, this thing is there as well, sorry. So plans, they don't belong to anyone. They don't tell a particular story. They're just available to anyone. So plans go sort of in this data folder that is just like a grab bag of like base level stuff that your application needs to run. But then we've got accounts. And in this case, I created an account for a single person, a family, and a couple, because those are the cases that I want to model in my application. So those are the kind of users that I want to test when I go and log into the UI, or that I want to create edge cases for in my tests. And because these are plain Ruby files, you just write Ruby to create your seeds or to create your test data. Similar to fixtures, they create a method based on the model name for you to write methods on it. So in this case, the accounts method or helper here is just the equivalent of my accounts model. So I can call any methods from it, from the model in this seed file. But Oaken extends it with this first argument, which is the name for this particular fixture. So that's when the two things start blending in. So I'm creating something, an account, that I can then reference in my tests by this name, similar to fixtures. So for anything that I really do want to give a name, I can give it a name. But for stuff that I don't really need a name for, I don't have to name it, which is very convenient. So I only name the stuff that I'm sure I'm going to reference in my tests. So here you can see I created this family. There's the family that's single, and unicorns, which if you don't know, is a unicorn puppet from Bluey, gets its own account for itself. Here in the family, which is a more complex seed, we create an account for the healers that we give a name, and we create users for Bandit, Chili, Bluey, and Bingo. But I'm creating memberships, but I'm not creating names for them. So I'm not naming the memberships because for the way that I want to set up my tests, I don't really need to name the membership. Cool. So those are accounts, but Oaken also gives you the opportunity to create seeds specifically per environment. So this tells me that data and accounts, the stuff we've seen so far, will be available in every environment, but I can create specialized data for different cases. So in development, I'm extending the accounts, the family, to have a bunch of chores. So it's just conventions. You could just do this with conditionals in your plain Ruby file, but this just allows you to organize things in a bit of a nicer way. So that is the case that I've got here. So if I do have this thing running, yeah. So if I go into the into Safari and go to localhost, I didn't create a root file, a root routes. So I go to users. You'll see that there's nothing there. And if I go to chores, I just scaffolded everything, nothing in chores. But if I go here and run my normal Rails DB seed command, this is so annoying. I'm sorry about that. If I run Rails DB seed, it's gonna run my regular seeds. And now I have everything that I set up. This one with this. And then this one. Ah, thanks, Sam. Beautiful. Okay. All right. So we've got that. So we've got over here, we've got users. So we've got this as well, right? But then if we go and then run a test that uses Oaken, this is the same test that we just saw that uses Fixtures. If I go in and run this test and then go look at my database, just refresh it. Main tables, users. Hey, we've got rad@oaken.com. So it's loaded all of my seeds into the test database as well. So now if I want to debug a test, or if I want to understand the object graph of a test, I don't have to go jumping between this the fixtures over here, trying to reason about, okay, this account then is used by this contributor in this membership. You can actually just go to the UI and say, okay, this is the user, and let's say chores, vacuuming the account of the healers. And if I click into the healers, I can see it. So I can build my graph and see it and work with it on the web and not just through the fixtures file, because as I said, the fact that they are all separated makes it a bit hard to reason about. So that is the basics of how this setup works. Yes.
You get access to your test fixtures in the Rails console.
Exactly. Yeah. You could also do that. I think I have them here. You can also load the tasks and run the task as well
No,
here.
but I mean, like, if you just.
But
look
if
for
you,
accounts now,
yeah. Count the account and first.
that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm showing here is that you can also do it with fixtures. You can also load them, but you can like load the tasks and run the fixtures load command. So you can also do that in your like in a typical Rails application with just fixtures, but Oaken sort of proposes that from the start, that the data matches between your environments as long as you have set them up in that way. So if I were to set up a test folder and run Rails DB seed, I wouldn't get those here. I would get them on tests.
In very cool nutshell, it allows you to use your seeds data in test as well without having to duplicate all that work.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay. So one of the hard things about fixtures is that they grow and they grow a lot and they become very hard to reason about. And because they are loaded for your whole test suite, you cannot count on that data being exactly the same across time because people are going to add to it. So if you create a test that says user.count equals 3, next week it's going to be 4 and your test is going to fail. So those kinds of things, the evolution of your fixtures is one of the hard things about maintaining fixtures over time. But the good thing about this approach and also like the regular approach with fixtures is that you don't have to go all in on a single approach. You can if I go to the user, can't remember which one I did this in, but I think it was, the membership test. Okay, in this membership test, I am combining two different approaches. So I'm using factories, or factory bot in this case, to set up a particular scenario that I need for this specific test. So for example, this one uses only factories. So I'm creating a user with a factory, an account with a factory, a membership with those two things that I just created, and I'm just asserting some stuff on them. But this other test is a test that I can become a member of an existing account. And I'm running it this way because the membership that I want to create here is the healers. So I want a factory bot user to be a member of one of my fixtures or my Oaken seats. So that mixture of approaches is probably where things become very interesting, and the maintainability of this approach increases a lot because you can use fixtures for the base layer of your tests, stuff that you always need to set up. For example, all of your accounts. So you always know that you're going to test for the single family, the single person family, the 2-person family, and the 5-person family. That's always there. It's always available. You can always access it very easily. But then you specify different tests with different data that you need using factory bot and the other approach that you already know. So that's it for this particular demo. One last thing that I wanted to show you is here, or two things that I want to show you. The documentation is short, but really well written and really good. You can go in and read it on your own. Something that is an advantage of this approach is that different from fixtures, fixtures, as I said, they create like this one single SQL command that gets shot into your database. That means that it is not aware of all of your active record callbacks, for example. So with this approach, it is going through your callbacks. So you get that for the good and the bad that is, you get all of the callbacks from your active record objects. So if there's stuff, for example, if you use active storage and active storage kicks off a job to analyze an attachment, that'll happen if you use the seeds file with Oaken. It won't happen if you use fixtures. So there are some benefits to using this approach as well. There are other interesting things that I haven't tried yet. You can create defaults for different things. So if you can have a default for the name attribute of any model or the name attribute for a particular model, and you can like augment your seed so that you're gonna have to type everything each time, but you can just fill them with some random data as you go. You can use this with RSpec, and something that they encourage in the gem is to create sets of seeds for particular cases. So for example, pagination. You don't want to create 1,000 records for every test that your suite runs. You only want to use that in the particular test that needs all of those records. So Oaken also allows you to create specific cases for specific tests. So that's another way that the approach is kind of interesting.
Notice that the seeds were all loaded in before any test run. So this is like that some of the seeds can be.
Yeah, you can. So if we had a seed for a file that was named pagination under cases, you can load it specifically for that test. That's why this approach is kind of innovative. You can push it a bit further and keep using this and not have to use factory bot or factories. So it's the reason why this is like a blended alternative to, I think that's how they it blends the stability and storytelling of fixtures and the dynamicness of factory bot. So they're trying to tackle both things. But what I wanted to show you is that it can actually use other approaches as well. So if your application, if you want to try something in the application with this, you could replace those things like the basic accounts and that setup of, I don't know, 3, 4, 10 records for each test that you always have to do. You could replace it with this, and you would save, I don't know, a few hundred milliseconds on each test or whatever. That adds up in a large test suite. So yeah, I think that is it. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Fantastic talk. Really, really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Interesting topic. It starts so early in anyone's Rails journey, and then it's just this like weird, vague sort of question in the back of your mind for so long. So I'm really glad you tackled it.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
My question is about that sort of data that you need to have in all environments, including production, say in your case like plans. Is Oaken like well behaved as you change that data? Say you make a change in development to remove or add a plan. As you deploy that to production, like what does it take to make that change in the plan's table?
Yeah,
Like a differential and work out whether it needs to remove a record or add one. Does it blank them all and start again?
Yeah, I don't think it's smart. It's smart enough in that sense, or I don't think they have considered that case. I know that they've considered allowing you to use Oaken in production. So if you run Rails DB seed in your production database, because Oaken knows about the different like folders for different environments, you could potentially always run Rails DB seed for plans, and it will always create that thing. If you're going to delete stuff, you're probably going to do it in some other way, but you could keep adding stuff to the base layer of your application in this way. That's something they're exploring. I think it doesn't work right now because this is fairly new. But you could potentially like keep up to date that base layer of things that any application always needs.
I think a related question though, like I see we've got upsert there.
Yeah.
How does it, what sort of primary key is it using to be able to do an update if that applies?
You mean in a test? Like
Yeah,
if I want to
in any
update,
case, like when it executes that upsert,
so
how does it know whether to do an update or an insert?
I am actually not sure. Well, no, yeah, I do know. So I think I know. So fixtures, what they do is that I think they hash the name of the fixture to create a unique ID. So actually, we can actually see it. So if we go here and we go to, I can't remember exactly where. No, I don't think I can show it here, but I think if fixtures do that, I don't know if Oaken does it. So we have to check with Casper. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
When does it become default Rails?
I don't know, but it feels like a much better default than the YML fixtures that we have now. I think they have served us well, or they did up until a few decades ago. No, but I think this is a very interesting approach, and hopefully more people use it because I don't think it's been used like in anger yet. So I think it needs like the test of time to see if it actually is a good approach to make it a default, either in Rails or in some like template or something. So that's why I'm bringing it here, because I want more people to use it and to tweet and to put issues in the repo and like talk about their experiences, because that's the only way something will know if it's something that will catch up or not.
It's for rocket emojis.
Yeah, needs some emoji love. Adam.
When you're doing a test suite run, you should still get pulled out of the
Wait, come again?
So when you're doing a test suite, right?
Yeah.
When it goes to read fixtures, it still have to pull it out of the database. So it's a connection there.
No, it's being pulled from the database. So when you,
Uh,
so when the
probably factories and fixtures and fixtures read
well, the thing about fixtures is that they get inserted in the database when your suite starts. So you never have to insert any of that data again.
and it sounds like it.
You do have to read it. Well, like you would any data in your application in a test, right?
Well, usually I get database tests. Build up with stuff factory bot and then it's create it's absolutely necessary. So I'm wondering if the best solution is or if it's fast enough that it just doesn't matter and just stick with fixtures.
I think that's part of the stuff that we need to like use more, like that we need to do to figure out if it's better or not. From what I've read, the fact that you put everything in from the beginning, I don't have to create it each time, like makes the read like simple enough and fast enough so that you don't have to worry too much about that. Because it's the cumulative count of all the writes that you do throughout all of your tests that make the suite slower. So if you just do it once at the beginning and then just roll forward and back each change, the compounding sort of time of your suite is going to be lower. So I think that you wouldn't worry too much about it. But again, we need more experience on that. I mean, Nate said it. It's faster. It's harder, but it's faster. So that's sort of the feel you have to follow. Yes.
Is there any plans for like abstract version, like standalone? General?
No, I don't think so, because it's very much tied to how Active Record works. So yeah, I don't think it's not in the scope from what I've learned. Again, I don't work on this, or I'm just like relaying information that I've read online. So, but I don't think it's prepared for that.
Does it work with any testing framework? Like,
Yeah.
testing jump or-
Well, RSpec and Mini Test are supported. I don't know if any other testing tools. I haven't used any others, so yeah. Sure, Anton.
Are there any special cases when you use stubs and mocks and when you use these pictures, stubs?
I just don't.
Yeah. Are there any interesting?
I don't think I've used it enough to understand when or when not to use mux and stubs and fixtures and whatnot. So I think you need to go try it and give a talk. Yeah. All right. I think that's it for today. Thank you very much.